They thought they could stop me, contain me. Fools they are! I've been running for minutes, maybe even seconds, and now I've got it. The secrets, the answers, what have you been hiding? Wait, really? Like what? Maybe some things are best left secret. Everyone loves the kart racing genre, and by that I mean everyone loves Mario Kart, and if you don't like Mario Kart, please stop invalidating my statements. But there are way more kart racing games. I feel like I see them all the time. But it's a bit of a hard genre to define. Generally speaking, kart racers are a quote-unquote wackier take on racing, with less stiff steering, a heavy focus on drifting long enough to get boosts, through courses filled with obstacles, jumps, shortcuts, boost pads, collectibles, and places to get items to use to boost yourself or harm the 7 to 11 other racers on the track. Sound familiar? Okay, but Mario Kart isn't the only media franchise that gets bestowed a kart racer. Rodents get one too. Hedgehogs aren't rodents. I'll get back to you on that. Sonic's been featured in many racing games before, probably most notably Sonic R, but the current era of Sonic kart racing began in 2010 with Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. This game is about half Sonic and half other Sega franchises, although mostly more recent ones, and sometimes not Sega at all. On the 360 you can play as your avatars as well as Banjo-Kazooie, and on Wii you can play as a Mii. Cause when I think Sega All-Stars, I think Banjo, Kazooie, and Party Phil. I wish there was more representation of Genesis-era Sega, but I guess they're just too scared to acknowledge Rystar exists. Well damn. This game is about exactly what you'd expect from a kart racer. It does a few somewhat unique things. Mini turbo boosts from drifting charge up to 3 times instead of the normal 2. Neat. You can do tricks in the air, giving you a boost based on how many you did when you land. This is a fun risk-reward type mechanic, seeing how many you can squeeze out of a jump, but it's sometimes pretty unresponsive. Not really a driving thing, but every race has a voice-acted announcer, and he's got tons of dialogue. It's pretty entertaining, and not something I've seen before. But that's kind of it. I had heard a lot of talk about this game being really fast, but didn't really notice it myself. And this is when I realized the game's difficulty is automatically set to beginner. I can't tell if it's placebo that the game feels faster on higher difficulties, but I don't think it entirely solves the problem. I think the tracks here just aren't paced the best. Sometimes it's like you're flying through them, sometimes it's just a really slow, drawn-out turn or a straightaway with nothing to do. It's unfortunate, because otherwise, these tracks are pretty good. They're mostly visually, thematically, and physically distinct. A few do resemble others, but not too much to be repetitive. There's 24 tracks in the game, but only 6 Sega franchises represented. Sonic only gets tracks based off of Sonic Heroes, which I just find so strange. No Green Hill or Chemical Plant Zone. Some Sonic fans might actually prefer that. No Twinkle Circuit. I just feel like they could have gone so much deeper. Some of the tracks are based on Curian Mansion, a series I had never heard of until I checked and no, that's just where House of the Dead happens. So if a franchise isn't popular enough to be recognizable in this game, we'll just rename it to something that only fans of it will get. Genius! Actually, turns out they use Curian Mansion as the franchise name because House of the Dead games are banned in Germany, and the developers didn't want to risk it. Oh. Can't tell what crashed harder, the game or my joke. So originally, I just bought the PC version of this game, but turns out that runs terribly on modern computers. So I went and bought the Wii version, which is what you have been seeing. It has some performance issues, and doesn't look that great, but it functions. Other than the fact that using a sideways Wii remote forces motion controls that suck. Single-player content consists of the expected Grand Prix and time trial modes, as well as a mission mode. It kind of feels like event matches in some Smash Brothers. They throw you into a track with a set character, and it might be a normal versus race or a Grand Prix, but there's a lot of special scenarios as well. You even get graded on them. You need A to pass, but you can get as high as AAA if you're good, acting as a bit of replay value, along with the game's achievements. This is where I spent the majority of my time with the game, acquiring the Sega Miles. You spend these in the shop to unlock a lot of the characters, tracks, and even music in the game. I'm not a huge fan of this method of unlocking things. I feel like locking this much content away in this kind of game is more annoying than anything, I don't want to grind to unlock racetracks, I just want to be able to play them with my friends. The music is weird sometimes too. All of the Jet Set Radio tracks play the same song, but there's 4 other Jet Set Radio songs just in the shop unlockable. Why have one unique song per track, and then the remaining are just unlockable? Feels odd to me. Some of the missions are about using the special All-Star forms, which is convenient because the game never gave me one from an item capsule. They function sorta like a bullet bill in a Mario Kart game, giving you a bit of a speed boost as well as a reusable attack. They're unique to each character, including playing different music. These are neat, but not particularly useful. The rest of the items are solid, but basically all of them have Mario Kart equivalents. But of course, the kart racer was built to be a multiplayer experience. Problem is, that requires multiple people. Crap.
Are you sure they can use the Wii Remote?
They'll be fine. If you can survive Wii Sports, you can survive anything. Of course, you can experience split screen in your Grand Prix and other normal race modes, but there's some battle modes too. They're bad. There's a lot of them, but none of them are very good. And that is Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. I enjoy this game, it plays well enough, but it's almost too generic to really care about for that long. If this is the only kart racer you have, your friends aren't gonna hate you, they'll just judge you. And if this is the only kart racer you have, they'll just feel bad that you own a Wii U. 2 years after the original, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed introduces everyone's favorite Sega icon, Danica Patrick.
What?
A Dreamcast controller.
I didn't play enough to unlock that one, just pretend it's there.
Wreck-It Ralph.
That one just makes sense.
Simon from the Yogscast. There's a bunch of other new Sega characters, but like, come on, Team Fortress 2 characters. Unfortunately, Banjo and Kazooie didn't make it, and characters like Rystar, Bayonetta, and Hatsune Miku could have been DLC, but instead they picked a character who was in the first game. Rystar may have been busy, but I guarantee you, Hatsune Miku was willing to fly a plane with Bayonetta, and they were just cowards. This time around, the game has a distinct gimmick: plagiarism. It released almost exactly a year after Mario Kart 7, and shockingly, it seems like people didn't get super upset about it. Actually, I think I figured it out. The game they're ripping off is from 1997, and that's the point where fans are totally okay with plagiarism to get more of their series. This game features segments of track where you turn into a boat or a plane, more so a combination of Mario Kart 7 and the one we'll discuss later, politely ripping off 2 developers at once. The boats honestly don't feel that much different than the driving, just more slippery, overall pretty fun. Planes suck! Why did I ever trust you? The controls are really loose, drifting with them is really weird. Wait, why can planes drift? What? The regular driving is pretty similar, so much so I can barely tell the difference. Except for now, while drifting you can release the brake button quickly to swap the direction you're drifting. This is kinda weird to get used to, but once I did, I warmed up to it and liked it. Keeping up with the transforming gimmick, certain tracks change every lap, often adding new sections with the different vehicles. This is a neat idea, and it's done in a way that feels really natural. In general, the tracks here are just better. Way more franchise variety, better design for the feel of the game. I never found myself disliking one. However, it's kinda hard to appreciate the visuals here. For some reason, the lighting in this game just looks really bad, and I don't think it's running at full resolution. It just looks a little blurry. This very well might be because I'm playing the Wii U version, but again, the PC version runs worse. What the hell is an Xbox? Once again, I played a lot of the mission mode, known as World Tour. It's now got a map format, you have to select a specific difficulty, there's less variety in mission types, and you have to unlock far more of the content here, instead of being able to do it anywhere in the previous one. Not a fan of this mode, but I will say the new mission types it introduced were alright. Items are more unique, and I enjoyed using them a lot more. If I look at it critically, there are a lot of very similar projectiles, but that didn't bother me, and the rest are well done and unique. If only it was fun to experience them! In an incredible moment of sheer ingenuity, innovation, taking risks no developer has ever thought of, Sumo Digital and Sega have teamed up to make starting a local multiplayer race confusing. Fumbling around in the menus, accidentally dropping out players, things just not being intuitive, this is a genuinely infuriating experience to try and play multiplayer. the battle modes still suck too. In a lot of ways, this game is better than the first one, but I can't help but like it less. It feels more inconvenient, more obviously full of graphical limitations. Maybe if I enjoyed Sega franchises more, I'd be able to excuse that, but look me in the eyes and tell me I like Golden Axe. So, how do we continue the series from here? Tell Rystar he's been laid off. Post-Transformed, Sonic racing games just kinda stopped. Formerly a very consistent release for the series. To be fair, when the defining games of the franchise were Sonic Boom, I wouldn't be spending money on gasoline either. But fans wouldn't have to wait too long, and 7 years later, we got Team Sonic Racing. Unlike the previous two, this game focuses solely on Sonic, because Rystar made everyone else busy. Once again, this has a heavy focus on the 3D lineage of the series, though there is one track set named after a zone from Sonic and Knuckles. I tried to add more, but lock-on technology just wasn't that forward-thinking. Though it makes a lot of sense to focus on this kind of Sonic, as the gimmicks of this game took direct inspiration from Heroes. The typical kart racer has no morals. Everyone else must suffer, and you leave with no friends, and it's the game design's fault, not mine! When picking your character, you're actually picking 3 to make up your team, and while racing, you all help each other. You can follow behind someone to build up a speed boost, drive past slower teammates to speed them up, and pass items to each other. All of this builds up your Team Ultimate, essentially a star for you and your friends all at once. I adore this mechanic. It's just so much fun to combo all of these things together and makes races feel so chaotic and engaging. This game is worse when you're in first place, because it's just so much fun to be boosting off of your teammates. The cherry on top is that the driving is the perfect blend of the previous 2 games. The track variety here is great, in terms of looking and feeling different, but man, I just feel like they're limiting themselves with these inspirations. Let me race on Honeycomb Highway, damn it! I do think this has some of the straightaway problems that All Stars Racing has, maybe even worse, but overall, really good tracks. I spent most of my time with the Adventure mode, which takes the best of both previous mission modes, adds its own special sauce, and becomes fantastic. The biggest addition is actual story and dialogue between the characters. It's cheesy and silly, but got genuine laughs out of me, and I think was a big reason why I played so much of it. It features a brand new villain, Dodon Pa, likely named after a genre of Japanese music, but screw that! Dodonpa is a Japanese roller coaster that holds the world record for fastest acceleration, and I think that's quite fitting for the villain of a kart racer.
Why name a villain after something that's fun?
It broke people's spines.
What?
While playing this, you get coins you can spend at a gacha machine for kart parts, which are sometimes gold. I hope Tails enjoys his tacky mobile. Items here are based off of the Wisps, and there's tons of them. While a few are reskins of previous games' items, a lot are totally unique. There's no battle modes to use them in, and honestly, I really don't think it needs that. This game is just so much fun to play either on the same team as your friends, or all on separate teams competing, that I don't see why you'd want to play another mode. Team Sonic Racing is a game I genuinely think could replace Mario Kart in a friend group, simply because it's different, it's unique, it's an amazing gimmick on top of an excellent feeling kart racer, giving the current trilogy of Sonic racing games an excellent finale. There is one more Sonic racing game I'd like to acknowledge, and that's Sonic Robo Blast 2 Kart. It doesn't really fit in with the others here, as it's a fan game and a mod of Sonic Robo Blast 2, which is a mod of a version of Doom. This is Doom! And if you're wondering how, no worries, I figured out their secret. Abracadabra! Skittle-dee-Dan! Turn into a kart racer or I'll hit you with Pan! This game thrives in its user-made content, and it's easily the most difficult and technical one of the bunch. But who cares about all that? You can play as me in it. Not so special anymore, Simon. So we've proven that the Mario Kart model was perfect for being copied. So who else would hop on the train? Nintendo. Let me finish. No, that was the end of that thought. Diddy Kong Racing. It wasn't that funny. Releasing holiday 1997, Diddy Kong Racing is still a beloved title in the lineage of kart racers. Developed by Rare, who were at the time pumping out Nintendo 64 classics and Donkey Kong Land 3, it was originally conceived as a real-time strategy game, then became a racing game inspired by Walt Disney World, and then, due to delays with Banjo-Kazooie, it was given the already well-established Diddy Kong IP. I get the vibe Rare's games are designed by picking random elements out of a hat. Based on that, you might expect this game to be based on the Donkey Kong Country franchise, but it's actually pretty much entirely original. Banjo and Conker appear here, promoting their soon-to-be-released first games, but I gotta stick with Tip Top, who's never done anything more important than this. I seriously hope being given head trauma is not considered more important. Diddy Kong Racing's main gimmick might seem familiar, but just remember, we're meant to make fun of Sonic, not Tip Top. You can race in a car, hovercraft, or a plane. The car is pretty standard, the hovercraft goes off-road and over water well, and takes tighter turns, and the plane is a plane. They all feel fine, but nothing spectacular. This game doesn't feature mini turbos when drifting, and I was just never able to get the hang of the driving. It's not bad, but I don't think it's particularly good either. The tracks here are pretty solid though, they're nothing shockingly complicated, this is a Nintendo 64 game after all, but they're good looking, feature unique set pieces, they're nice. You may wonder why I'm not talking about their actual layouts, and that's because I don't remember. But Diddy Kong Racing isn't beloved for all that, it's beloved for its adventure mode. The big difference here between mission modes and the such is the hub world that you drive around. Timber Island, named after this kid.
And I don't get an island?
It's the home of this genie elephant whose name I would absolutely butcher if I tried to say it. He's the guy who sends you on your quest to collect a bunch of balloons to remove Wizpig from this island because, like, he's bad or something. If he's meant to be the good elephant here, why doesn't he just give all the balloons to us? See, they agree. Sometimes you even have to race the jerk for them. Are you really on my side? More balloons are earned by winning races, all divided across 5, subworlds? Subworlds. Each one has 4 normal tracks, where you do a normal race and then one where you have to collect 8 coins and win, a battle mode style thing, a Grand Prix, and a boss level. Here you get to race such classics as Tricky the Triceratops, who isn't the same as Prince Tricky, but he was meant to be. These boss fights can be really hard, and for me, this game is just really hard. I got to this course, Greenwood Village, and spent well over 2 hours trying to beat it before giving up.
I'm totally willing to accept that. Maybe I'm just missing something with this game.
Tip Top has the second lowest top speed in the game.
Okay, so most kart racers have characters. If you're this far in and you haven't realized that, I am deeply concerned. Oftentimes, these characters have different stats. Acceleration, top speed, handling, that kind of nonsense. Sometimes, this is told to you. Other times, it's hidden. And it's always stupid, especially when these characters are from established franchises. I just want to pick the one I like. I don't want to have to think about how well they perform, I just want a Tip Top. In most kart racers I've played, the differences between characters is hard to tell. Like, I played 3 different weight classes in this one, and yeah, there's a difference, but not much of one. During multiplayer, it probably will do very little to affect the race, but when playing single player, stuff against CPUs that drive damn near perfectly, it kinda sucks. Picking between different karts is better, but every game that has that still has character stats because I'm not allowed to have nice things. I just wish that driving and item usage was what decided races, instead of picking a character other than a turtle who odds are is gonna be slow.
Wait, how didn't you figure that out before?
Shut up.
Speaking of items, Diddy Kong Racing does something different with them. There's 5 different colored balloons on the track, each giving a certain kind of item. Red gives a projectile, blue a boost, etc. If you collect another balloon while already having the same one, you get a more powerful one. This is a really cool mechanic. It makes items way more strategic compared to random ones, although it does sacrifice some variety. It was such a good idea that LEGO Racers would borrow it 2 years later. I present the most plagiarized game of all time. And that is foreshadowing. But of course, this is a rare game, meaning it has cheat codes. This game is a beloved classic, so much so that it would get a DS remake 10 years later, and I don't know, I just don't get it. It does what it tries to pretty well, but I just feel like other games do it better. Can you believe I'm gonna use that to transition to this? Donkey Kong Barrel Blast was the final Kong spin-off made by Payon, who previously worked on the DK games. I'd make a joke about that potentially not going well, but we all know how this story ends. This game has a terrible reputation, and I kinda disagree. I'm gonna regret that. This was a 2007 Wii game, so naturally, prism waggling is in order. In order to accelerate in this game, you shake both the Wii Remote and Nunchuck until you're at max, then you can just stop. Then, you shake the Nunchuck to move left, Wiimote to move right, and both upwards to jump, and A to punch. I don't hate this. Sure, it's weird, awkward, tiring, kinda painful, but it's fun to control a game like this. It's unique, you gotta strategize around it, and it works like 97% of the time.
Wouldn't you feel that 3% like a lot?
Yes. Anyway, how do you feel about it?
Bad!
I have to admit this control scheme is weird and nonsensical, but it kinda has a reason to be. This was originally announced as a GameCube game, using these, the DK bongos. With the context of these, I think this gameplay makes a lot more sense. It's a shame this didn't make it into the final game, the Wii had GameCube controller ports, but Tam decided the waggle was the way. Jerks. The other main gameplay mechanic are wild moves. While racing, you collect bananas, and once you get 50, you charge up a wild move, and you can hold 6 at once. A short hold and release of the analog stick and you go wild, boosting forward, and you continue boosting the more barrels, enemies, and other racers you hit. I really love this mechanic. When the track allows for it, it's super fun to combo a bunch of things together and fly ahead of the pack. Emphasis on when the track allows. The tracks in this game are very hit or miss. Oftentimes there are not many opportunities for big combos, 1 or 2 at most. Sometimes they're covered in obstacles and there's no invincibility frames, so you can get comboed over and over again. There's very few track themes, which can be fine, but so many of the tracks reuse big segments of previous tracks, or are literally just the same track, either in reverse or changed so little I can't tell.
You like this game?
Let me explain. Barrel cannons are all over these tracks, sometimes acting as shortcuts or sometimes launching you to vehicle segments to collect bananas and shake things up. There's style barrels and these yellow ones, both that have little Wii Remote waggle minigames. Rambian on guards sometimes appear to boost you forward and collect a bunch of bananas. Does this redeem the course design?
No!
But they tried enough to make it fun that I don't hate it. They're visually not bad, nothing impressive, but I can look at them without feeling distinct pain. And I actually really liked the music.
You could hear it over all the screaming?
Yeah.
What the hell is wrong with me?
It's hard to know where their priorities were in this game's content. There's essentially like 8 or 9 tracks, but 15 items. There's 2 sets, some in red and some in blue balloons. There's no real thematic difference between their uses, but if you grab a red item while playing as a Kong, it's stronger, and blue items are stronger for the Kremlings. I never noticed the difference. There's actually a decent chunk of characters, 16 of them, half and half Kongs and Crocs, although apparently half of the Kremlings were made for the game. I wouldn't know. You unlock some of these characters playing the Grand Prix mode. Time Trial and Free Run are basically the same, Cranky's Flight School is way longer than it should be, and Candy's Challenges is the rest of the single-player content, where fan service is the key to unlocking Clump.
You really think this is good?
No. This game is lazy, janky, and oddly enjoyable. It's bad in all the right ways, and I can't help but say Donkey Kong Barrel Blast is fun. And if we've already gone this far off the rails...
What did I do to deserve this torment?
Based on the show, based on the comic, and somehow his 13th video game appearance so far, Garfield Kart. Upon opening this game, I couldn't get the menu to work. I tried messing with my controller, but still nothing. I assumed it didn't have controller support, used a community mapping and Steam, and it still doesn't work. Upon further inspection, yes, all of the menus in this game require the mouse. You ever get the feeling a game was originally made for smartphones and then ported to PC? Me too. I know you see the 3DS version there, and are wondering, why didn't they play that?
We've suffered enough!
This game, shockingly, has a tutorial, and immediately this tells me everything I need to know. Generic visuals, weird controls, CPUs backing into me, oh boy, this is gonna be a ride, isn't it? Driving in this game is boring, it's so stiff, but there's a short glimmer of hope every time you get to drift a bunch, before immediately remembering what game you're playing. The tracks are bland, forgettable, the visuals look as generic video game as you could possibly make. The only thing Garfield about this are the characters, and honestly just who the hell is Harry? I played these in the Grand Prix mode, just so I could unlock more tracks, but apparently with these coins you can preview them. It really feels like this game had microtransactions on mobile, but I can find absolutely no reference to this being true. So maybe this is just an absolutely terrible design choice. You also spend these coins on boosts, basically buffs for one race in a Grand Prix, which includes a boost right at the start of the race. That staple feature of basically every kart racer ever costs 15 coins here. You also spend them on kart customization, and it's kinda neat that's here. Not sure how much the stats really matter, considering I think they just forgot to balance them all. Odie is just an objectively better Garfield.
Damn right he is!
I'm gonna give the game credit here though. There is one neat thing it did. Certain items have different behavior depending on if you throw them in front or behind you, and this magic wand is just a cool concept.
This game is bad. It's funny for a little bit, until you end up bored, realizing, why the hell am I playing this? It's not atrocious, it's playable, it runs fine, it's not devoid of content, it's just uninteresting and boring. There's a sequel! There's another one! They did this again!
Here is everything different in Garfield Kart Furious Racing. The menu looks different and now works with controllers, no full screen toggle, the graphics are better but look best on average, not high. The tutorial is now just reading, everything is unlocked from the start, the boosts are gone now, replaced by a normal timing thing at the start of the race. The UI is different, races now have 8 racers instead of 6, drifting feels slightly different, arguably worse, turning now feels more stiff, definitely worse, boost pads last longer, feels worse, movement in the air is more limited, definitely worse, music and sound effects sound different, the magic wand projectile is yellow now, there's an indicator for homing pies behind you, puzzle pieces are in different locations, the gem bomb explodes at impact now, the end of cup screen is different, Steam achievements. Notice what isn't different? The tracks, the characters, the items, the music. This is not a Garfield Kart sequel. This is a remaster, one that actively makes the game worse. And no, better lighting and background junk doesn't help when the feel of the game was worsened. The whole crutch of this game was the addition of online, which was already available for the PC version. This game is $30 US on Switch.
I'm really not sure what I expected here. Pretty sure the only reason this thing exists is because the original became a meme. And as punishment for you all turning it into a meme, I'll torture you with my own obsessions.
Releasing 702 days post-Animal Kingdom,
How else are you meant to measure time?
Walt Disney World Quest Magical Racing Tour was developed by Crystal Dynamics, because they weren't doing much else. The character lineup here makes a bold decision and contains Chip, Dale, Jiminy Cricket, and 10 nobodies no one will ever care about.
Mickey was too busy being in a kart racer developed by Rare. Based off Diddy Kong Racing, I'm seeing a trend here.
But the real appeal here are the tracks, all based off of rides and locations around Walt Disney World.
I greatly regret to inform you that I love this stuff and will now not stop talking about it for far too long.
There's only 13 tracks in the game, unfortunately, but there's a decent reason for that. The tracks in this game are beautiful, covered in immense amounts of detail. They're littered with references to the actual source material, notably the Haunted Mansion featuring tons of callbacks, along with Pirates of the Caribbean being loaded with show scenes. A lot are just inspired by, like Big Thunder Mountain, Rock and Roller Coaster, and Dinosaur kinda. Which, fun fact, was named Dinosaur in this game before it was in the park.
No one cares.
The sheer passion that went into decorating these courses is truly impressive. The Typhoon Lagoon track features the mascot of Typhoon Lagoon, and I didn't even know he existed. Speaking of Typhoon Lagoon, 3 racetracks, the aforementioned Lagoon, Test Track When It Was Worse, and Hollywood Studios aren't races, they're arena things where you collect 30 coins. Each track has its own vehicles, based off of the real-world ride vehicles. So the Jungle Cruise has the steamboats, Space Mountain has rockets, Haunted Mansion has abominations from hell, etc. The music even is all referential, except for Dinosaur because that uses music from Gex.
We can't escape him!
The menu music is It's a Small World, which is great because it means I can torture you all with it. Most of the tracks are based off of actual ride music or cue music.
Because when I think racing, I think waiting.
But some of it are actual iconic lyrical songs from these rides, which can be rather, interesting. So, naturally, I love these racetracks. Part of me wishes the track layouts actually matched the real-world equivalents, but that'd just make them even worse, probably.
Well, that sounds like foreshadowing if I've ever heard it.
God, these tracks are way too small, or way too big sometimes. The turns are so tight or not tight enough, and they're full of branching paths which are neat, but make them hard to get around and really easy to get lost in. They're really long too, like 4 to 5 minutes per race, which theoretically the branching paths fix, but most of the time you just end up repeatedly taking the one you already know how to get to. All of this crap isn't helped by the driving controls. You go so fast in this game.
Sonic could never.
And I found myself constantly crashing into walls, sometimes so hard I'd spin around and have to slowly turn back. The turning is pretty awkward too. Drifting is way too sharp, but regular turns are too slow. It has a single player mode, but most of the content is just win race, get thing, good job. I think there's more to it, but I don't think I care to find out.
This game has the exact opposite problem with Garfield Kart. It's full of personality, but it is hell to control. I don't think it prevents it from being fun, but I'm the exact target market for this kind of fan service. It won't appeal to anyone else, but it's much more fun. I would rather play this, but neither are particularly good. This, however, is turbo shit.
I bought this game with money, based on the candy who's only good in mini form.
I was ready for you this time.
M&M's Kart Racing, or M&M's Racing Team, depending on who you want to believe, is the only game that has made me give up within 45 seconds of starting.
I'll pick the green M&M.
'Cause she's hot.
Well, I'll pick the yellow one, 'cause he's hot.
He would be your type.
This game is controlled in the worst way possible. Tilt the Wii remote to turn, and move it upwards to jump.
Guess how good the Wii remote is at determining the difference between this and this.
So I picked Tournament Mode, which I assumed was Grand Prix, and got the first course, Chocolate Factory. I immediately crashed into every wall. You can't turn when jumping, and because the turns are so sharp, you're constantly changing direction, and oopsie doopsie, that means you're jumping. This sucks. So I decided to try the next course, the Streets, instead. And I used the kart with better handling, thinking it might be better. And while I didn't hit many walls, now I was just moving too slow to have any fun. So I went back to try the factory with better handling. It did not improve. I'm wanted for this?
When the M&Ms aren't enough, play Crash Bandicoot instead.
Crash Team Racing's prototype was a Diddy Kong racing course.
Why does this keep happening?
It's the 4th Crash game, and naturally, as a kart racer that isn't bad, it's full of fan service, but this time it's from games I know more about, so I can say, ooh, I know that bear, he kicked my ass! Some of its most unique characteristics are in its driving. On the surface, it might look the same as everything else, but it's got some tricks up its sleeve. Mini turbos don't work the way they do normally. Instead, while drifting, you can time hitting the other trigger to do your boost, letting you do up to 3 in a row with the right timing before having to stop and restart drifting. Combine this with the drifting having a different feel to most other games, and being able to hop off of high areas to get speed boosts, and you've got a very, very fun feeling experience.
Unfortunately, nothing else can be quite as unique as Barrel Blast.
Shut up.
This game features a full adventure mode, very similar to Diddy Kong Racing,
And a surprise to no one.
multiple areas to drive around in with portals that take you to races, and each one culminating in a boss. There's some challenge side modes too, one for collecting crystals in these arenas in a time limit, pretty standard Crash Bandicoot time trials, breaking boxes to freeze the timer,
Want more hours in the day? Just kidding.
and finding letters hidden around the track while still having to win. You even get collectibles from these that unlock more races and challenges. The variety here is nice. Instead of just being races, there's more to it, and I didn't find it crazy hard like before. This was in spite of picking Polar, the slowest character in the game. I can't complain about having to replay these tracks so much because I think they're great. They never drag on, and they never get repetitive since, as far as I can tell, they never or rarely reused track themes. For a single player, this might be the best game of the lot. Items aren't really anything special, though I really appreciate TNT crates and the masks being here. But, like Diddy Kong Racing,
They really couldn't resist.
there's a way to power up your items. A lot of kart racers have items to collect on the tracks. Coins in Mario, rings in Sonic, bananas in Diddy Kong, etc. Normally, the most these items do during the race is increase your max top speed or acceleration, and Wumpa Fruit do the same here, but if you collect the maximum 10 Wumpa Fruit, your items get more powerful. and it's noticeably more powerful, so much so that you will go out of your way to grab a crate for them. It's a really cool spin on something kart racers have been doing for ages, and makes it much more important to the game. Aside from the headlining adventure mode, there's still all the other modes you'd expect, and also a battle mode, making the multiplayer options even greater.
Of all kart racers from today, I think this one makes the best case. Every part of it is fun, it's unique and well executed. Crash will go on to have a bit of a legacy in racing, with Crash Nitro Kart and Crash Tag Team Racing, which I have neither of because they're pretty much just worse, and a remake of Crash Team Racing, Nitro Fueled, which is also good.
However, these go-karts used to be Crash Bandicoot themed, and no one else in the world would tell you that.
So there you go, an interesting collection of kart racers. Some okay, some bad, some absolutely terrible, and few genuinely good. So, what's the best way to replace Mario Kart? Don't.